How much the H2A Visa program has grown in the USA over the past 10 years. Over the past decade, the H2A Visa program in the United States has undergone a remarkable transformation. From its humble beginnings, it has surged in size and importance, becoming a critical component of the nation's agricultural labor force. We will delve deep into the growth of the H2A program, examining the driving factors, regional disparities, and its impact on both American farmers and foreign workers. 1. Farms are increasingly using guest workers to bring in the harvest. Behind the growth of the guest worker program are labor shortages that farmers across the USA are getting worse every year. It has become a nightmare for people to find anyone, says Dylan Honcoop, who grew up on a raspberry farm and now represents farmers in Northwest Washington through the group Save Family Farming. For decades, a predominantly Mexican workforce migrated around the U.S., often starting in Texas and following the harvest through California and eventually to Washington state. But that has changed due to a constellation of factors, including a tightening of the southern border, aging out of the migrant labor force, and competition from other industries. Enter the H2A Visa program. First established in the 1980s, the program allows employers to bring in foreign farm workers on a temporary basis, provided they cannot find enough workers in the U.S. to get the job done, among other requirements. In 2020, guest workers accounted for just 10% of the farm labor workforce, but their numbers are skyrocketing, especially in southeastern states and on the West Coast. In Washington state, requests for guest workers soared to more than 37,000 so far in 2023, from just over 2,000 in 2009. 2. Exponential growth in guest workers raises red flags. On paper, the H2A program appears to check a lot of boxes. Give workers from poorer countries a safe, legal pathway to come to the U.S. to perform essential work, after which they can return home with earnings far exceeding what they could have made otherwise. It's an opportunity to earn more money than in Mexico, says an H2A worker in New York State, who spoke to NPR in Spanish on the condition that he not be identified, fearing retaliation from his employer. We all have families. We have wives, we have children, we have parents to support, and we need work more than anything. A downside, he says, is the program offers no pathway for workers to stay in the U.S. beyond the harvest. 3. Beyond the guest workers themselves, there are many more complaints. The recent explosion of the H2A program has raised grave concerns among labor advocates and lawmakers, both about the welfare of the foreign workers who participate in the program, as well as about the domestic workers they may be replacing, including those who are undocumented. To qualify for H2A workers, employers must provide housing as well as transportation, both to and from a worker's home country, and to and from the work site. They must provide kitchen facilities or access to 3 meals a day. They are also required to pay workers a wage set by the government that is higher than the minimum wage and not lower than the prevailing wage. In Washington state, that wage is currently $17.97 an hour. That's by design, to ensure that guest workers are adequately provided for during their stay, and that the local workforce is not economically harmed. Still, gaps in enforcement have resulted in numerous labor rights violations, including wage theft. 4. Slavery-like conditions and other abuses uncovered. Labor advocates warn that H2A workers are highly vulnerable to exploitation. It's all about labor control and having your status tied to your employer, says Rosalinda Gillen, founder of the farm worker rights group Community to Community Development. A 2021 federal investigation, dubbed Operation Blooming Onion, found that H2A workers in Georgia were forced to dig onions with their bare hands while being severely underpaid and threatened with violence and deportation. The workers were housed in an unsanitary work camp, encircled by an electric fence, with little food and no safe water. 2 died, according to court records. Washington state has seen its own share of illegal activity involving H2A workers. This spring, the state won a $3.4 million settlement against Ostra Mushroom Farms in Sunnyside, Wash, after finding it had fired local workers, including some who had complained about discriminatory practices, and replaced them with guest workers. 5. Local workers fear being pushed out. This summer, community-to-community development is focused on helping local workers apply for jobs that will otherwise go to H2A workers. Under program rules, employers who have requested guest workers are required to recruit and hire eligible local workers who worked for them the previous year, but Gillen says that hasn't adequately happened. In the past, she says, workers could just show up in person and request work. This year, a local berry farm sent local applicants to apply online, a technological challenge. 6. Efforts are underway to clean up the H2A program. Those involved in the business of bringing guest workers to the U.S. acknowledge there are bad actors, but believe the program can be cleaned up. I'm all for if there's an employer not doing what is very clear, and they're mandated to do, they need to be told what needs to be done, says Enrique Islam, CEO of WAFLA, the nonprofit farm labor contractor that's responsible for about half of all H2A applications in Washington state, and is among the largest employers of guest workers in the country. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. Also, subscribe to our channel before you go.